Good evening. My name is Phil Easter, historian and writer from Baltimore, Maryland, also known as the Amazing Memory Man. Recording tonight on Tuesday, September 16th, 2025. This is story number 80 on my YouTube channel, which is Phil Easter, the Amazing Memory Man. I'm very pleased now to have 80 stories on my channel. We started on December 29th, 2021, in just under 4 years, sharing stories on many famous people and events in history and some interesting events of my own personal life, especially in the areas of travel and sports. A great variety of subjects to share. Very happy now. This is story number 80. And tonight, I would like to honor the great singer and actress Julie Andrews as she comes up to her 90th birthday very soon on October 1st, 2025. She was born in England on October 1st, 1935. Her name at birth was Julia Elizabeth Walton. Julia Elizabeth Wells, W-E-L-L-S. But she later just changed her name to Julie Andrews. And she performed on stage in London and other cities in England as a young lady. And she came to the United States in the 1950s and appeared on Broadway. She was in such famous musicals as Camelot and My Fair Lady. And then in the early 1960s, she started to make movies. And in 2 consecutive years, she made Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music in 1964 and 1965, 2 of the most popular musical movies of all time. And I saw her in Mary Poppins at a theater here in Baltimore in 1964. I think I was just 11 years old. My birthday's in October, so I know it was before my birthday that year, so I wasn't yet 12. And I enjoyed that movie very much. The story is set in London in the year 1910. And she is a nanny taking care of the children of a family named, the father was Mr. Banks. And he was a banker. And some interesting escapades she and the children have. And actor Dick Van Dyke was also in that movie. And they do a number of touching scenes together, Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke, including some dance scenes. And there was a funny word made up for that movie, a 13-syllable word called supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. They really made up that word for that movie. But if you see it, it's just a very cute, charming movie. And it came out in 1964. And the same year, another popular musical, My Fair Lady, was made, starring Audrey Hepburn. And many people thought that Audrey might win the Best Actress award. She was very good in that movie too, but Julie Andrews won Best Actress for Mary Poppins that year. Well, the next year she made one of the most famous movies of all time, the world-renowned The Sound of Music, which many people call one of the greatest family movies of all time. The beautiful musical filmed in the country of Austria, the story of the Von Trapp family, a real family of Austrians who were known for singing. Back in the 1930s, they performed at festivals in Austria. And then towards the end of the decade, when the Nazis took over Austria, they fled to Switzerland for a while and eventually came to the United States, and some of them became citizens and lived in the state of Vermont. So Julie plays Maria Von Trapp in that movie, The Sound of Music. The opening scene to The Sound of Music is, in my opinion, the most beautiful opening scene of any movie I've ever seen. It's filmed on a mountaintop in Austria, and one of the photographs I have up here, as you can see, Julie Andrews is singing The Hills Are Alive with The Sound of Music, the opening scene to The Sound of Music. And she becomes a nanny for a family of 7 children. Captain Von Trapp had lost his first wife some years before, and eventually they fall in love and get married. And there are some dramatic moments towards the end of the movie as a Nazi officer is trying to force Captain von Trapp to join the Navy of the German Navy. And of course, Captain von Trapp does not want to do that. He had been in the Austrian Navy some years before as an officer, and they wanted him to serve in the German Navy, but this man who loved democracy and freedom and cared about his family and his country refused to go. A beautiful song from The Sound of Music is called Edelweiss, a flower that you can find in that country of Austria. This movie meant so much to me because 5 years before, in 1960, my mom took me to Europe. My first trip to Europe, a trip of 7 weeks. And we went to France, Austria, and Italy, those 3 countries. And in fact, in Austria, among the cities we visited was Salzburg, where much of The Sound of Music was filmed just a few years later. So you can imagine when I saw this for the first time in 1965, when I was 12 years old, that summer, it was just so striking. And would you believe that movie was so popular that it was shown in one Baltimore theater exclusively for more than 1 year, for much of 1965 and part of 1966. It was shown in one theater in downtown Baltimore, the only place in the Baltimore area you could see it. It was shown twice a day, every day for more than a year. That's how popular that movie was and how many people wanted to see it. Of course, in the 1960s, this is long before you could have videos or other ways of watching movies on the internet, So you had to go to a theater to see a movie. But even for over a year, imagine that, in one theater. That's how popular that movie was. Well, we saw it 4 times on the big screen between 1965 and 1966, my family and I. And then years later, it first appeared on national television, the ABC network, on the night of February 29th, 1976. Easy date to remember, the day that comes only once every 4 years, leap year day. It just so happened that's when the ABC network showed it on television. And I was living in Boston at that time. I was very happy to see it again after not seeing it for about 10 years. And then, of course, there are many ways you can see all these movies now, of course, but back then that was a pretty big deal. Even when a major movie came to television for the first time, it was often highly advertised. The Sound of Music, co-starring with Julie Andrews, was Christopher Plummer, a fine actor who was born in Toronto, Canada in 1929. Here's something interesting. Her 2 leading men in those movies, Dick Van Dyke and Christopher Plummer, from Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music, both share the birthday of December 13th. Dick Van Dyke was born December 13th, 1925. As I said, Christopher 4 years later in 1929. And Christopher died 4 years ago on February 5th, 2021. But in just a few months, on December 13th this year, Dick Van Dyke will celebrate 100th birthday. Isn't that something? Born December 13th, 1925. I think it's just wonderful how both Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke, who co-starred in Mary Poppins, still living so many years later, when that movie was made way back in 1964. Julie Andrews went on to do many other movies, of course. Another well-known one was Victor Victoria in the early 1980s, an interesting comedy movie set in Paris, France. And she did some dramatic roles too, co-starring with Omar Sharif in a dramatic film some years later. But she's best known for Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music, which brought joy to so many people. All over the world, people have seen those movies, and many times also on TV or on the internet you can find them. And I tell you, she was the first actress and singer that I admired very much. And I'm so happy that she will be celebrating her 90th birthday coming up soon, October 1st, 2025. This is Phil Easter, the Amazing Memory Man. We will see you next time for story number 81, another story on another subject Thank you, and good night.